we kind of discussed about, what teams we've liked so far in the draft. We've kind of discussed about, how free agency's gone. What are your three sleeper teams this year? What are teams you think aren't really getting talked about much that might surprise, just even if they're having a better record than what was expected, or even making the playoffs, or going further than that? What are your three?
Yeah, my three sleeper teams for this upcoming season. I have the Jaguars, the Giants, and the Dolphins. And here are the reasons why. I actually am a big Jaguars like truther right now. They had a good season last year, and they just gained Calvin Ridley. Like he's coming back. He's gonna add another weapon to this offense. A lot of people have been I don't know if hating is the right word, but yeah, hating might be the right word. The right word. A lot of people are hating on Trevor Lawrence right now. And I don't really see. He was just like first year in a new system last year. He was arguably the best quarterback out of his class, right? People said that.
Yeah.
Even though I love my guy Fields, but people said
But
he's
he was
way,
he was the
yeah,
prodigy coming
he
in.
was, yeah, exactly. He's only going to get better from here on out, right? I think the defense is pretty good, and the AFC South. I mean, at this point on June 25th, right? I don't want to say anything is a lock, but that seems like the AFC South is a lock for the Jaguars.
Yeah, it
I
does
think
seem
I think
pretty
it's kind of that
volatile.
might be a fair statement. So I think they could make a deep run. Honestly, they were a couple plays away from beating the Chiefs last year in the playoffs. I know it's coulda, woulda, shoulda. But yeah, I guess we can see what happens. The New York Giants. I feel like everyone has forgotten that they won a playoff game last year. They have no love right now. Like they're not getting any sort of love or attention right now, other than the drama going on with Barkley,
Well,
right?
how much do you think that's attributed to? I mean, a lack of a major move in the offseason. I think a lot of teams were hoping, or a lot of fans were hoping, maybe for a change at quarterback. They saw, Daniel Jones be okay, and thought maybe if Brian Dable had a star quarterback or something, this team would go to next level. So, how much of that do you think is attributed to that lack of big flashy move?
It might be a little bit, but I actually think that you can win with Daniel Jones. They just won with Daniel Jones. And people forget that the Giants' offensive weapons weren't great last year.
It's true.
I mean, who do they have, catching passes from
Kenny
Jones?
Galladay.
Yeah, right. Like, dude hasn't scored a touchdown in like 2 years or something like that. Like, what's even going on, right? So they have Barkley, and then nothing, right? Even I checked on FanDuel this morning. Okay,
Mhm.
the Giants have worse odds, like lower chances to win the NFC than the Packers. Like at FanDuel, seeing the Packers as more of the favorite to win the NFC over the Giants. The Giants just won a playoff game last year, and we talked about the Packers. Packers are somewhat rebuilding right now, right? So I don't get where the hate is coming from regarding the New York Football Giants. Lastly, the Dolphins. People might say, okay, it's not like a sleeper pick, but okay, here, listen. They're picked right now to finish third in their division in the AFC East, behind the Bills and then the Jets, right? We forget that their offense is loaded, right? And
Yeah.
maybe it's because a lot of people don't believe Tua can stay healthy for an entire season, which, okay, given last season and all the head stuff going on, that might be a fair statement. But if this team can stay healthy, they just added Jalen Ramsey on defense, right? So you have Howard and Ramsey, you have Bradley Chubb and Phillips, rushing the passer. This team is posed like if they can stay healthy, I think they can make a run for the AFC East, right? And in worst case scenario, they kind of slide in that wild card spot, right? And then who knows? Like once you show up to the dance, anything can like happen. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just get there. So those are my three sleeper teams for this upcoming season. Again, the Jaguars, the Giants, and the Dolphins.
I'll go through mine real quick. We're a little pressed for time, but I think we've kind of like covered this pretty much before. But mine are just gonna be pretty much the teams that we felt had the best draft of free agency. I mean, we had the Steelers, who had Darnell Washington. They drafted Nick Herbert out of Wisconsin, who I think is like a little mini TJ Watt. I mean, their style of play is very similar. If you watch them back at Wisconsin, they're just disruptors, dude. They just every play they're in the backfield, forcing fumbles, tackles for losses, sacks. You can even drop them into coverage, and they're getting pass breakups.
Yeah.
So just absolute disruptors. I mean, I think at the quarterback position, they're going to be a little bit uninteresting to watch. I do think Kenny Pickett takes another step forward in his development, but I think his ceiling is still being a middle of the pack quarterback, which isn't bad, especially if you have a loaded roster around him, which it looks like the Steelers do. They still have Cam Hayward, I believe. They still have Najee Harris. They still have, George Pickens, who's going to probably, I say by probably next year, maybe the year after that, we'll be talking about him in the top 10, top 5 conversation. I mean,
Okay.
the dude's that good. They really got another stud there at receiver. And that's with huh?
Sorry, I'm about to ask you. Do you think he'll unseat Deontay Johnson as a wide receiver
Oh,
one
for
for
sure.
the Steelers?
I think he's the reason Deontay Johnson gets traded. I
Okay.
remember we were talking about it. I was talking about with a Steelers fan on Twitter a couple weeks ago about, where's Deontay Johnson? What's his standing? I think they're not going to, they're going to say, hey, Deontay Johnson, here's 18 million, take it or leave it. And he's going to say no. And they're going to be cool. And the next trade deadline, we're moving you because
Okay.
they still have him
That's
for
fair.
the team control for this year. Then I think after next year, he's a free agent. So probably at the trade deadline, he probably gets moved. But I mean, like I said, they had Darnell Washington. They still have a solid O line that I believe in. It's still Mike Tomlin. So I think that's a team that's going to make some noise. I know they're in the AFC North, so it's going to be a tough. You got the Bengals and the Ravens there.
Right.
Again, the Browns are no slouches either, but we could see it. 3 teams from the AFC North send teams to the playoffs, or as injuries happen. So that would be my sleeper team. I think that they probably make it to the playoffs this year. Probably as a wild card team. My second one is the Saints because they got Derek Carr. They still have Mike Thomas coming back. They still have Chris Olave. He's going to take a step forward. I still think the defense is, still got Alvin Kamara. I mean, they're a solid team and they're playing in a very weak NFC South right now that seems kind of lost. You have the Panthers that are rebuilding. You have the Buccaneers that are kind of lost. You have the Falcons who are, early in a rebuild and development. So I think that's their main competition. So I really wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at the standings at the end of the year and going, holy crap, the Saints are in first by 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see that definitely being a sleeper.
I like that. Yeah.
My third one is going to be the Broncos. I know it kind of got a little hype early in the offseason with Sean Payton joining Russell Wilson, but it's a tough division still. But I think that's a good pairing and a good matchup. I think he can fix up a little bit of the flaws. I think he gets Russell Wilson moving again, which makes him a much more exciting team. I don't think they make the playoffs. Man, maybe they do, but I think it's going to be close. I think they're going to be a much better team than they were last year and a much more watchable team than they were last year.
Yeah. Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think, let's say, now I hope this does not happen, but let's say there's a repeat of this season, right? Or repeat of last season with the Broncos just falling apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that happens again, do you think they finally move on from Wilson after his second year with the team? Yeah, he's done.
Yeah, if you have a second year of just absolute ineptitude and he just doesn't look like he has it anymore, he's scared to throw a deep ball or he's just out back there taking sacks, I think you have to make the bold decision and just eat the cap. And I don't know if you cut him, I don't know if you trade him, you might have to just release him because I don't know any team's going to give you anything of worth for him. But I think at that point you cut bait and you see what you can get in the draft, because I don't think they'd fire Sean Payton after 1 year of that, but I think the general manager that traded for him would probably be out. Who is it? Is it Patton or no? Who's whatever the general manager there is at the Broncos are? We can't remember.
I can't even think. Yeah.
But he would probably be out, would be my guess, because he's the one that brought Russell Wilson in and gave up a huge package for him.
Yeah.
But
I'm not hoping this happens, but just think about this. If they do fall apart again and they're in that conversation of having potentially a top 3 pick, could you imagine that kid from USC with
Caleb Williams
with Sean Payton? Can you imagine that?
Well, here's what would be interesting about that, because if the season goes the way we think it will and the Cardinals get the number 1 overall pick, I mean, they have Kyler Murray, so more than likely they're going to keep rolling it with Kyler Murray, which means Caleb Williams is up for any team that's willing to give the Cardinals the biggest package. So now again, is that the Broncos? I don't know. Have they gotten all their first round picks back? They set going forward. They might at that point, if Russell Wilson doesn't work out. I mean, they might be willing to trade 3 or 4 first round picks in the future to Arizona to get him, because you're going to be in an immediate competition with every other team that needs a quarterback. It's the first time you've had like an Andrew Luck or a Trevor Lawrence or one of those kind of prospects, but the team drafting number 1 overall doesn't necessarily need a quarterback.
Right.
So I mean, you really could be seeing a whole fire sale for this pick. I mean, It could
sure.
get ridiculous. That's if the Cardinals get that pick, which I imagine they're probably shooting for.
They probably will. They probably will.
Yeah, I doubt they're trying to fall too far because I know they want to, probably still get Marvin Harrison Jr. or whoever else to pair with Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
But,
sorry, Brim. He's already locked. Chicago.
All right.